Last time when Zero and Lemnis Gate came out, I pretty quickly went over the effects. Well, it wasn't actually quick, it was like a 30-minute video, but either way, I said I would review the effect of Amatsu when it came out, and it's out, came out last night, I think around a little over 12 hours ago, so I'll just go over it now. It takes one Sky Striker Ace monster, unlike stuff like Kagari or the original Tayate, Kaina, Shizuku. It actually doesn't require like a non-dark, so you can link it into itself if you're like running 2 and it's negated for some reason. But you can only summon once per turn, so I don't know. Like, if it's like perma-negated by like the Diabell trap or something, you can link into another one and then use the effects. I think that's still pretty like copy, but it's just an important thing. Well, maybe it's not even that important, but it's just a thing to know. And the second effect rather, well, I guess that's a condition, but second effect, when your opponent activates a monster with 2k or monster effect that they control with 2k or more attack, you can change its effect to pop a Sky Striker Ace Link monster your opponent controls. Kinda Phantom of Yubel or Grafa type effect, but this is like extremely specific since it's only 2k or more monsters, and they get to choose which link they pop. So if you have like this and Hayate, they'd probably pop the Hayate. And the third effect, or second effect, depending on if you consider the condition effect or not. When an attack is declared involving this card and an opponent's monster, pretty important to note that it says opponent's monster, so you can't use this effect if you're attacking directly and they don't have a monster on board. You can target one Sky Striker Ace monster you control and one card your opponent controls, destroy them. It doesn't have to destroy both, so it just has to destroy one. So it's kind of like a Promethean, but it's just like a pop. I guess that's cool. More removal is always nice in Striker. You don't have to choose between like monsters or back row like you do with Area Zero or with the Afterburner and Jamming Waves. So I think that's actually the most solid part about this card, is just being able to pop a card. And now what's really important to remember with this is that when an attack is declared involving this card and an opponent's monster. So like suppose you have a Shizuku on board, right? They run it over, you have Ray in the Grave, Ray comes back. Now, with the way the game actually works, after the resolution of a battle, or the damage step, or whatever you want to call it, the opponent has the first action, and they can choose what to do. So like suppose they ran your Shizuku over with, I don't know, I'm drawing blanks here. They ran it over with a Spirit Dragon. Like for some reason they have 2 Spirit Dragons on board. They ran your Shizuku over, and for some reason they didn't negate your Ray. Now Ray is back on the board, and they have a second Spirit Dragon. Before you can use your Ray effect, they can declare an attack with their second Spirit Dragon on your Ray. And if you tag out your Ray into Amatsu, and a redeclare occurs, this effect, when an attack declared involving this card and opponent's monster, you cannot activate that because it's a redeclare and not an actual attack declaration. So if you were thinking of doing anything like funny like that, it won't actually work how you think it works. And if you'd want to survive in a situation like that, you'd still have to use something like Kaina. But either way, I think you're tagging into Zero or Kaina in such a situation. So this is more of like an offensive, like the pop on it is more of like a board clearing offensive type thing. And I think that's pretty important to know because I feel like a lot of people would get that mixed up. I did even see it like on the YCS stream, the Labyrinth versus Memento match with the Goblin Biker thing. Like the players didn't catch it and the judges didn't catch it until a turn later. But it's pretty important to know that. Now, what else? The other part I wanted to talk about with this card is how how like insane this is in the battle phase. Like suppose you go Ray, you attack, you tag into 0, you attack, you tag out, pop a card, you summon Ray and Rose, and like and you have a Luminous Engrave, you can activate it, force a Link summon, and then you can link one of them into Amatsu. You can attack again, Amatsu triggers, target Ray or Rose, whichever one you didn't use, and then you can pop a card on their board. Like, it's just insane board clearing capabilities in the battle phase. Against decks like Sprite and Yummy, where their monsters are all pretty small. Well, I guess the Yummy monsters aren't small if they have the field up, but I would like consider this in like Sprite and Yummy and other small monster matchups. Like this card will go pretty hard, I think. But the other thing is like if you have like Ray and drones, you could like normal Ray, link into Hayate, activate the drones, put Amatsu below it, and suppose they have like a problematic acro card. You can attack with Hayate, deal your damage, send a card, attack with Amatsu, target Hayate or Amatsu, then pop one of their back row, I guess. Or I guess you can target the Hayate, pop a monster or a back row, and then Amatsu runs over another card. Like, I think this card is really good for Striker in clearing stuff in the battle phase. Like, I would run at least one of this. I don't think the card is bad, I just think it's really specific in what it does. And it would be nice to have in a lot of situations. But the other effect is like the Phantom of Yubel or Grapha type effect. When your opponent activates a monster they control with like 2k more effect or 2k more attack, you can change it to pop a Link monster you control. I feel like this is like really specific, so I'm just gonna go over the maybe not meta, but well, I guess a lot of these are meta, but like there are way too many decks in Yu-Gi-Oh to go over all of them, so I'm just gonna go over the main examples, like Alzarion. Now, on his fusion summon, he can bounce cards. That could be annoying, like if you have multi-roll and you use a bunch of spells, or you have like, you used Cyanos and you have Cyanos and Rose, he could bounce them, I don't know. But let's just say for some reason they summon this. Now the thing about Dragontail is he is most likely going to be chain blocked, so I don't know, if you have a bunch of important cards that you really don't want bounced, like even then that's like a really odd case in Striker. Like I feel like this is just like I just don't think this card is applicable versus Dragontail, especially Alzarion, because he'll most likely be chain blocked. Now Greymil, for example, when you activate a Dragontail card effect, you can target one card your opponent controls and pop it. Now, this is a more applicable case in the Dragontail matchup because this is not going to be chain blocked. Well, yeah, it's not going to be chain blocked because this is a quick effect, so it's going to be after the triggers, and if it does happen, you can actually change the effect to pop Amatsu or a Link monster you control with Amatsu. So it is applicable versus Greymil, and I feel like Greymil is really annoying if you're playing Striker. So that's like one card is good against. Now against Malice, if you can get this on the board, like with linkage, and you have like multi-roll up, you probably fear your multi-roll being banished. Like, and you just want to be able to make plays safely without dealing with all the Malice nonsense. This card is actually pretty good to have on the board, because you can be using your board breakers like Raigeki while you have a multi-roll up. You can be using your afterburners, your widows, and while you have this here, you don't have to worry about Cryptor, because even though her effect cannot be negated, it can be changed. So And that means like Striker is one of the few decks that's gonna have a way to not have to deal with Cryptor's Banish, or a way to counter it. And the other one is White Binder. Now this card is absolutely obnoxious when you're playing Striker, and if you can just like start off with multi-roll or something, and you just like get into the situation where you're starting to activate your stuff to break their board, and you have Amatsu on board from like linkage or something, and they want to summon White Binder with GWC06. Amatsu is actually really good in that situation. And on Yomi, I don't think it's good there. I mean, it can be good if they have the field spell up and they're trying to banish shit from your grave, or I won't even consider the situation where they're trying to book Rose, because because obviously they're going to be booking Rose before you get a link on board, so I'm just going to ignore that. Now, K9, I know these guys have like the effects to summon themselves, then perform an Exceed summon into a rank 5 on your turn. I really don't think that matters as much. Like, there are some situations where it would matter, but I feel like K9 is kind of a splashable engine. Like, it can matter, but I wouldn't really consider Amatsu the main selling point there, because like, I mean, I guess it is okay versus them, but I feel like Widow is the more likely card I'd use to deal with these two. Against Blue Eyes, I feel like Blue Eyes in this matchup, this is just a matter of brute forcing your way through their negates. Drill Beam is a bigger problem, and Amatsu doesn't really help with that. I mean, it can come up against Orchest. I feel like Orchest can be kind of a hard matchup, and the good Orchest players are going to steal your monsters before they become a problem with Enlil Gursu. I mean, Dingursu's case, if you see them go like skeleton target Dingursu, and you have like, I don't know, a card on board, you can chain linkage, summon Amatsu, then when the Dingursu revives, you can chain Amatsu to make it pop itself. I don't know, you're still losing a card, and you're probably losing one for each from linkage. Like, I don't think it's that great. It's probably not that applicable versus Orchest. But it is a Dark Machine, so I guess Orchest could even use this if they wanted to for some reason, and like they're on... Well, no one's really on drones and engage in Orchest anymore, but you get the idea. Against Ryzeal, I don't think this is that applicable. Like, maybe if for some reason they summoned another Duo Drive and it's like in a simplified game state, you see them summon Duo Drive, you can go like linkage, then summon Amatsu, then they have to run this over, and then the effect activates and you could just pop the Duo Drive. So I guess that's one like situation in a simplified game state. I'm not gonna go into Mermail. I think this is just like some coin flip nonsense. They're just gonna be hand ripping. Like, this is a deck where you need hand traps to win, or siding. So I'll just ignore that. Against White Forest, this deck has way too much interaction for Amatsu to ever be relevant. Like, the White Forest end board is just like, especially in OCG and Master Duel, like, you're not beating this board without like an insane amount of board breakers and drops, and I don't think Amatsu is really ever relevant to what your ways of winning against that deck. But as you can see, like, there's a lot of stuff you have to think about when you consider the 2k change effect. Like, there are some situations like where obviously the telegraphed ones, like if they summon an Exceeds monster, you can go like linkage, and then they have to deal with it before they can activate the effect, and if they have to battle, you could pop Amatsu, so like, I guess that's nice in a way. And I guess against Malice, it's like good to have on the board, since generally I think Malice doesn't play like Omnis. I guess in Master Duel they can play Apollo. And OCG as well, but in like TCG I feel like this might come up against Malice. But I think overall those are my thoughts on Amatsu and what it does and how you'd use it. And I don't think the card is bad. I would personally just run one copy of it. I feel like it will get a lot of use. It's kind of like a Kaina where you think you don't need her and she comes up a lot, even in situations where it's just like you want to use like Duster, then chain linkage to start playing, and then you have to summon a Kaina because you don't want to go into Hayate yet. Like, I feel like there are definitely a non-zero amount of situations where you will need Amatsu to win, so I would just run one of it. And I don't know, like, I don't think the card is bad, but it's not amazing. Like, obviously, compared to Zero, every other striker card is like nowhere near as good. And Lemnis Gate is really solid recycling, so I guess this is the weakest of the... well, I don't know. It's probably the weakest of the three, but it's still a solid card for striker. The only issue is that it's what do you call it? An extra deck monster, and the space is already really running low. Like, you can see I'm running this list only, well, it's not even like a real deck list, but it has like the whole extra deck is one-ofs, and obviously you'd want more Kaguri, you may even want another Hayate, you'd want something, you'd want another Zero. And as you can see, the space runs out really quickly. And if you wanted to run something like Cyanos, you'd have to run a Link 1 for it, like this for example. And then like that's your extra deck full already. So I feel like if you want to play this, you probably wouldn't run Cyanos, since you're already like so tight on extra deck space. I don't know. I feel like the extra deck space is the biggest issue with Striker now, because I feel like Typhon wins me so many games I wouldn't really consider cutting it, especially in like the simplified game states, or if they dealt with like your Ray and then the links after, because they had like a bunch of negates or something, then you can just steal something with a Widow. Typhon can win the game often on its own if you just back it with like multi-roll or Widow anchors. And SP is just like SP. The banish effect is too good at clearing stuff from the grave, and dealing with problematic cards that your other cards can't. Although I guess Zero can pop stuff now, and this can bounce stuff. I don't know, I still feel like you would run SP. But those are my thoughts on, what do you call it, prototype Sky Striker Ace Amatsu. And thanks for watching. If there are more striker cards in Duelist Advance, I'll go over them, and see you guys later.